Just all right, so everyone knows this is being recorded for posterity. Today is October 28th, 2020, and it is what is the full name of our committee?
Youth Education and Human Services.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've met since Suzanne and I were talking about this probably February before the pandemic. So it's good to see everyone. We do have new members on the committee. So I think we should just take a couple minutes now and everyone just kind of introduce themselves, and if you want to, do a little icebreaker, just say something that you think everyone should know about you.
And most important, because Jason has remained chair of the youth part of the committee, and I'm still chair of the education part of the committee, but Tiffany Reed Brown is now the new human services chair of the committee. So welcome, Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany, there you are. So let's start with Tiffany. I'll just, because we only have 7 people, I'll just call people out. So Tiffany, you can go first. You're on mute.
Better?
There we go. Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you.
My earphones are giving me an attitude. Sorry about that. My name is Tiffany Brown. 2 things about me. Gosh, I love children and animals. I can deal with kids and animals all day long. Don't give me adults that talk back. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go to the other co-chair, Suzanne. I'll let you go next.
Suzanne Tourette. I'm from the Park Slope part of the district. I've been chair of the education part of the committee for a while now, and I'm glad to see everybody.
Okay, and then we'll do Bridget Rain.
Hi, I'm Bridget Ryan. I live in Clinton Street, and I work for the United Federation of Teachers. So I am a former teacher. Well, never former, always a teacher. And Anita Skop was District 22 a long time ago, and she remembers me when I was a little girl. So just so you know, that's a little cute thing about me.
Thank you, Bridget. Now we'll go to Dana Harris.
Hey everyone, Dana, and I have been on the committee since I think 2017. Something everyone should know. I live in Park Slope also, and recently moved, but just a block away. So all of my civic engagement duties remain static.
Okay.
Ms. JOEANN Brown, President JOEANN Brown.
Oh man, I thought y'all were gonna go right past me. Thank you. Okay, let me see. I love taking care of I call them my grandparents. And I love taking care of my children. And I love my animals. And I'm always thinking positive of I don't care what's going on until I just find out the information.
And I referenced a title for JOEANN. JOEANN, do you want to tell everybody about the new role that you have?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I just became the new elected president of Warren Street Houses Tenants Association.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Neil.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm still moving out and about, almost home. But Neil Zephyrin, this is my 2nd term, I believe, on CB6. I've been on this committee since about 2017. Also, someone mentioned that they were a former teacher. I am a former high school teacher. That was in my past life. I no longer teach in high school, and
once a teacher, always a teacher.
Well, that's true. I still teach. You're right. You're right. And I've worked closely with Anita in the past. I was on the CEC 15, and we've done some pretty good work together. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Neil. And I guess I'll go last before we talk to our VIP. My name is Jason Reischel. I'm the co-chair Youth Service Committee. I also used to live in Park Slope for 13 years, but now I live in Carroll Gardens. So just like you, I'm still in CB6. So not that much has changed, just my zip code and where I vote. And I was a professional musician for like 15 years playing guitar. So it's good to see everyone, and I'm glad that we do have a quorum in case we need to do anything that's binding. But at this moment, I want to kick it over to our District 15 Superintendent, Anita Skop, to kind of fill us in on everything that we need to know District 15.
You're muted.
There we go. I met with CEC 15 last night, so you're going to get the same information. First of all, thank you for having me. And I want to say that Bridget's beautiful mom was the president of the PTA when I came into school. And so she was like my idol, and I was so amazed at all she could do. So it was very special.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. So first of all, let me tell you what's going on in District 15. Like everybody else in the city, we are talking about the policy of adjusting from blended to remote and vice versa that the chancellor came out with this past week. And it went from being a series of opportunities to one more opportunity. Parents will be able to complete a survey on November 2nd, from November 2nd to November 15th, determining whether they want to move their child from remote to blended or vice versa. But most importantly, we're looking at blended because that means the children would be impacting the actual presence in school. And so principals are very eager to get this information and to figure out how they're going to support the children that way. This will be the only time the chancellor has said where there will be this movement. Now, before it sounds really tight, please understand that we have been moving children all along. It is at the discretion of the superintendent. And if the school has room, the principal has room, I'm happy to move children. We're very flexible about that. So I don't want people to go into an absolute panic about this because we are open to the needs of the community and the children. Second of all, they came out with a grading policy, and it's fairly similar to the one that was done in the spring. I am actually going to call up the information because I don't remember the exact titles off the top of my head. But I will tell you that it is, 1 second, come on, open up, good job. So grade 3K, pre-K do not get grades, period. Kindergarten through grade 5, they will have the opportunity to get the kind of grades that they have usually gotten, which in elementary is usually a grading system of 1 to 4. If a child gets a 1 or a 2, they will get what is called a needs improvement, as opposed to getting the low mark. Also, parents have the opportunity, if they are not pleased with their child's mark at a level 3 or 4, to ask that it simply says mastery. And so that is at the discretion of the parent or the guardian to do that. And so that will be something that is an option that parents have. In grades 6 through 8 at the middle school level, again, the schools will be using numeric grades, much the way they always have, for example, but those numeric grades are more in line with out of 100. So the way they are done in the middle schools and the high schools. And if a child is not doing well, then they can get a course incomplete, or if they're really doing poorly, they get what is called an NX grade, which allows them to work over the summer and complete the work. Again, at the discretion of the parents, if they are not satisfied with the numeric grade the child has gotten, they can simply ask that it says pass. And the same pretty much holds true for high school as well. We have heard nothing about state testing. We have heard nothing about regents. I don't know how they would do any of those things. I think they're waiting to see. So that's an important thing. The other thing in line with assessments is that this year, previously last year, the state, as you may know, the state requires for schools that are CSI or TSI, all schools, well, let me back up. All schools do something called a CEP, a comprehensive educational plan. And in their comprehensive educational plan, Lisa, we haven't heard anything about the high schools either. All schools, when they do the comprehensive educational plan, are required to show how they are progress monitoring. And by that, they mean that how are they showing that what they're doing with students is successful? And so they select any form of assessment that they can choose. Schools that are in good standing have never had a problem with that. And whatever they use to assess, they assess. Last year, the schools that the state designated as CSI, TSI schools, those schools were required to do a specific assessment called the MAP assessment. And that was used for progress monitoring. This year, schools can self-select from their own menu of assessment. So they're kind of being given that option. So schools will be doing different things. I always, when I talk about this, I have to say something about my philosophy about this, so bear with me. And that is, people get very nervous when we talk about assessment, because Bridget can tell you, and anybody who's worked in the school system can tell you, that oftentimes assessment was used very, very heavy-handedly to basically to seek blame, to seek a rationale for blaming people for things, or to say that this made something unsuccessful. And in some very severe cases, to close schools. What I believe assessment is for is very diagnostic. It is designed to help us figure out what children need. And so in our district, we really focus in on that, and we're looking at very specific diagnostic needs of children. I was an early childhood teacher. I am absolutely passionate about children being fluent readers by the end of second grade, because it is life-changing if they are not in a very negative way. They have to be able to read fluently, because when you get to third grade, the reading load is consistently larger and harder, and children are expected to read for information. And so you need to be fluent as readers. Therefore, I see early childhood as a pivotal piece. So looking at not just the testing grades as the state testing grades, but looking at early childhood and the needs of early childhood is super important. And those diagnostic needs are like when you go to the doctor. If you go to the doctor and they don't take your blood pressure and they don't take your temperature and they don't listen to your heart, how do they know what's wrong with you? It's not like they're going to look at you. And so that's the way assessments should be used. That's what we believe. And so we're very supportive of our schools, looking at what their kids need and looking at how they're meeting those needs. That, all of that being said, one of the things that assessments are supposed to do are supposed to help you to monitor if what you're doing is working. And as you know, and Bridget knows because she's a teacher, and Neil knows because he's a teacher, and anybody else who's taught anything knows that if you are doing something, you want to know if it's working or not. And if it's not working, then you have to say to yourself, I'm not going to spend a whole year doing something that's not working. I have to change it up. I have to figure out what I need. I can tell you endless stories about this, but the gist is, and I'm going to use the medical analogy again, if you go to the doctor and God forbid you have high blood pressure, it may take a while for them to adjust your medication or change your medication to get you where you need to be. But they are not going to give you 2 aspirin and tell you to take it for a year and then come back. And so that's what we cannot do with our children. We have to be very diagnostic, we have to be very prescriptive, and we have to be very clear. We do not blame our children. We do not blame circumstances. We are here to help our children. So that's my philosophy. So please bear with me. The other things that I can tell you that are going on in D15 is, like elsewhere in the city, we have some concerns about connectivity and about the iPads. We have kids who have come in who really do need electronic support. But unlike in the spring, thank God, because the buildings themselves are open, teachers are able to give families, even for remote students, packets of information, books, and materials, and they have done so. They have done a lot of outreach. There is an extensive amount of outreach that is done for children to make sure that we hear from them. We know they're okay. We know they're not getting lost in the crush. And one of the things also that I think is a very big plus, and this is from the DRE all the way down, is that attendance is not being used as an arbiter of grades. It is not connected to grades. It is connected to the child's well-being. Do they need support? It's more of a social emotional piece. Just trying to make sure that we connect with all of our kids, that they're safe. And there is no punishment for attendance in terms of grading. The other thing is that, let's say a child is remote. It isn't as if they have to be on the remote all day. If they can't handle it and they just check in the morning and that's what they're doing, that's considered present. Because the idea is to support children from where they are. And in some cases, it's difficult for families. For example, you may have one laptop and 3 children. Then how do you juggle that? And we have families that are waiting to get the hotspot iPads we've ordered more. There are 100,000 that have been ordered from the Department of Ed, in addition to the 300,000 that were given out by the end of the spring. And we've ordered 100,000 more. I believe that they actually only need 70, so there's wiggle room there. But those are coming in slowly. I don't have to tell you. And so we're hopeful that by mid-November, everybody will have what they need. Meanwhile, we're using paper materials and books to reach out to our kids. And our schools are very good about that. They're excellent about it. We are, as you are aware, because it impacts Carroll Gardens, we are doing the PAR process in terms of looking at rezoning for the schools. So no decision has been made, no map is on the table, no anything. What we have done is the PAR process. And I don't know if I've ever had an opportunity to talk to you about this. So if I may, let me explain what I'm talking about. When we started to talk about rezoning, we are doing rezoning in a way that is remarkably different than anywhere else in the city. We are looking at it through the lens of integration. And because we have schools in Carroll Gardens and schools in Red Hook and schools in the area in between Gowanus and everything, we have 7 schools that are in what is called subzone 3. And we were fortunate enough to have construction added on to PS 32. So if you've been near PS 32, if you've walked around, you will see that they have a beautiful new addition. They were able to do that because it had a gigantic schoolyard, absolutely huge. And it had a series of portables that were beginning to fall apart that the community wanted to get rid of and the Department of Ed wanted to get rid of. So for the past 3 years, they've undergone construction and they have a beautiful new addition, which gave us 400, I believe it's 408 seats. And because of that, we were looking at rezoning. So consequently, we started looking through the lens of integration. And when we started having meetings, we had the Office of Planning came out with possibly two ideas. One was to unzone the entire subzone 3 and do the lottery much the same way as the middle school lottery works. And the other was to create lesser zones in the more overcrowded areas. So, and to balance and create free and reduced lunch, students in temporary housing, and English language learners opportunities that would enable them to get priority for seats at any school. When we started going out to meetings, and we must have had half a dozen or a dozen meetings that we went to all over the place, we realized very quickly that while we were hearing from the parents in Carroll Gardens, we were not hearing much from the parents in Red Hook or the parents in Gowanus. And we wanted to ensure that all the voices in the room were heard. And so consequently, from the community came the idea of doing something called PAR. PAR is Participatory Action Research. And we in District 15 have been the recipients of a SIGA grant, or a state integration grant. And because we had a little bit of money from that grant, we were able to fund the PAR process. Because had we not had that money, then it would have become a precedent-setting piece if the Department of Ed paid for it. So this way we're paying for it. It's not precedent-setting, and we were able to go forward with it. And what participatory action research does is it literally takes people from the communities, anybody who can volunteer, and a small group of people have, and they are trained, and they are paid a small stipend to interact and get information and share information in the community. The Department of Ed is not connected with any of that, in that it is run through a connection with Brooklyn College. And so there is this real belief system that's working, where people are willing to talk to their neighbors and friends, the way Jason was talking about the census at the food banks. And that's exactly what they did, which is very different than talking to people that they don't know from the Department of Education, that they don't trust. And especially in communities that have been historically disenfranchised and redlined, where they feel that their voice is not counted. This is an opportunity for their voice to be heard. So we are in the midst of that process. There is a survey that is available. It is available online at our website, and I'm happy to send you the link for the survey. They are in the midst of doing this. Obviously, as you had exactly the same thing with the census, we had all these really big plans, and then COVID came along. And so they put a kibosh on a lot of the things that we were going to do, but we've done some. They've done outreach through food banks. They've done outreach through Red Hook Initiative. They've done outreach through Gowanus Housing and Wyckoff Housing and all of that. But they've also done outreach, and they have members of the team who are from Carroll Gardens. So it's a nice mix. And they have been reporting back to the CEC. We don't know what the timeline is as yet, and they will make recommendations as to what they think might work. So while as the two original pieces may or may not still be on the table, they can recommend anything they think would work. So that's the PAR process, and that's where we are with that. And the last thing I want to tell you is I have exciting news, and that is the SIGA grant that I just alluded to was a grant that had steps to it. So the first grant was $57,000 the first year, and we were delighted to get that, and we were very excited. And the second year, the grant was, again, slightly competitive. The first year it was not competitive. All you had to do was apply for it. But the second year was a little competitive, and there were requirements, and we got $130,000, and we used some of that money. That's how we're funding the PAR process. But the last piece of the grant is a 3-year chunk that was highly competitive, and that is $2.7 million over 3 years. And we just found out last weekend that we got the grant. So
Wow.
we are so excited about this because it will enable us, it will enable a number of things. We are going to be doing work in terms of supporting schools, in terms of classroom libraries, in terms of parent workshops, in terms of all working around culturally responsive curriculum, integration efforts, all kinds of work around that. We're very, very excited about this. And because we have this 3-year long grant, we have written into the grant that should any other part of the district require rezoning, we have funded the PAR process going forward. So in District 15, rezoning will always be a grassroots initiative as opposed to a top-down initiative. So we're very excited about all of this, more to come. And it's just wonderful. And we're hopeful, please God, that we get through COVID and we can do great things. So that's it.
That's great.
Thank
I
you.
have a couple of questions.
Sure, I'll answer anything I can.
So was enrollment in District 15 schools down this year?
It's
And-
interesting, Suzanne. It's very interesting.
And in one part of the district or the other part of the district, how did it?
So the place where we're seeing the greatest decrease in enrollment is actually the north, more affluent end of the district. The southern end of the district, there's a slight decline, but they're not big numbers. The northern end of the district, in fact, some of our most popular schools are the ones that are showing a declining entry point. Middle school, less than elementary. We have a bubble in middle where people are actually coming into middle. But the elementary, I don't know. I think it has very much to do with COVID. I think that many people are waiting to send their children because they're out of town, or because they have created a pod situation, or because there are so many variables to this. I think this is something we're seeing across the city. But again, we're going to have to wait and see how this shakes out. But yes, in answer to your question, there is a decline in population. But again, I am not so sure that that will happen once schools, please God, reopen.
Mhm.
You know, I think that people will come back and things will come back. Although some people may decide that the suburbs is a great place to live, you know, I don't know. But yeah, it's a concern.
Suzanne,
Suzanne,
may I?
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, okay. Anita, I just want to say in front of the committee, in front of the guests, that it's been it's such a pleasure going into your schools. I've been for the UFT going in, doing the walkthroughs. I was at your high school on Burham, the Burham Hill High School. And, you had your principals all set. The schools were just like a community, and I'm just giving you a big compliment
Thank you.
out loud. And your PPEs and the custodians were working well with the principals and the teachers felt as part of the community. And it was just such a pleasure going into those schools. I went to other schools and I was given such different results. Your schools especially was great. I just want to know what's going on. Are you checking your BRT teams? Are you getting reports from your principals? I'm sorry. It's called the The basic
is.
response teams.
Yeah, the BRTs, absolutely.
Are you getting reports from them, and how are they doing with PPEs? And are you getting those daily reports about what is needed in the schools to keep the schools safe and clean?
So
And
to be honest, we haven't even had to, because the principals themselves and the custodial staff, I have a very close relationship with the facilities people. And the minute we need anything, they literally have been driving all over before schools open to make sure we had every single thing. I am so impressed with the work they're doing. If a principal needs something, they are very comfortable reaching out to me. They have masks, they have cleaning materials. And the thing that you noticed, Bridget, that I think is impressive as well, is that the custodians and the principals and the teachers and the schools are communities. They're truly communities. And they are very committed to the pride that they feel in the school. And if I can talk, I haven't been in the school, so I can't say that I did walkthroughs the way you did, but I can tell you that my deputy did, and he said that the schools are very clean, they're very well kept. He said they're a pleasure. He's been there for random testing, and he was impressed with the way the schools handled it. Our security agents, may I give a shout out to them? They've been remarkable. The chancellor came to one of our schools, and they said, and the chancellor was like coming into 32, in fact, on one of the first days of school. And the agent said, "You have to fill out this form, sir." And he said, "No, it's okay." And he said, "No, I'm sorry, you have to fill out this form," to the chancellor. So the expectations are followed. People are very respectful of each other. They're concerned and they're careful. They really are concerned and they're careful. Having said all of that, I can't swear that when kids get out of school, they do the right thing, but I can tell you when they're in school, they're doing the right thing. The teachers have been very supportive of their kids. They love the kids. I've been doing virtual visits to classrooms, and I've seen lessons, and some of the work that's being done is extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. And so all of that, the BRTs are doing what they need to do. And in fact, even the things that would have to be done regularly that have nothing to do with COVID. So fire drills, shelter drills, all of those are being done. We just had a principals conference yesterday. The head of Brooklyn came and spoke to the principals, reminded them of the time frames. They've changed the time frames a little bit, obviously, because schools started later. So he gave them a set of time frames, and they're doing everything they need to do to make sure the kids are safe, the buildings are safe, and that we're doing what we need to do to keep the schools clean. And thank God, I have to say, we've had a couple of cases. We've had schools with cases, but the only time that we've had to close schools has been because of the governor's color-coded system. We have not had to close schools yet. I don't want to give it a kanahara, as my mother used to say, but we've been very fortunate. We had one school in the red zone that is still closed, and that is PS 131, which is the one that is the closest to Borough Park. It is on 43rd, between 43rd and 44th Street. It is on off of Fort Hamilton, and it is very, very close. So they are still in the red zone. We had 7 other schools that were in the orange zone and closed for 10 days. And those were PS 230, PS 130, PS 94, PS 896, PS 24, and MS 839 were closed for the 10 days. They have reopened as of Monday. Thank God everything is fine. We have schools that are doing very innovative and creative things. Some of them have been approved for outdoor space. So for example, MS 136 is using a side street for outdoor space, and they're doing some lovely work there. Schools are taking walks to Prospect Park, the ones that are close to the park, to do some science work there. Schools are using their schoolyards. We're managing our classes. Some of our schools are more filled than others. For example, I don't know if you're aware, but yesterday a study came out that talked about the disparity of children of color are less likely to be in school than children who are more affluent and white. And so we're seeing that. We're absolutely seeing that the families that are partaking of sending their children to school are more the families in the northern end.
Mhm.
In fact, PS 29 has one of the highest student presences. They have a very high student presence. We have a wonderful attendance rate. And that includes remote and blended. And as of today, our attendance was 94.4, which is excellent for this time. I'm very proud of that. So yes, in answer to your question, Bridget, the schools are clean, the kids are coming to school, and we are working as a community very tightly.
Great, great.
So it looks like Neil also has his hand raised. And if any of the attendees that aren't on the board have a question, just put it in the chat. So Neil, the floor is yours.
Hey, Anita, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
I just have a question. In terms of the PAW process, what's the timeline in terms of them coming with a resolution in terms of the final plan? Are we looking for school year 2021? And then the other, no,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead, I'm sorry.
Finish. No, finish.
No, I was going to say, and then the second question I had was, you had mentioned that attendance was not going to be used as any indicator of grades. How is that going to be enforced? Like, I mean, I know that's a general statement, but is there going to be a way that that parents can be comforted in knowing that, the attendance is going to be used for assessment purposes and not for, grading purposes, or, how exactly is that?
So I'm going to give you two answers because they're very divergent. So the first one about the PAR process is there is an expectation that they will come forward with recommendations probably shortly. I would assume that they would do so before the end of the year. We don't know what's going on in terms of the timeline yet, but it is an expectation that they will come forward with some recommendations shortly. They were at the CEC meeting last night and they talked about they explained the process and what was going on. And they indicated that fairly shortly they should be able to come forward with some recommendations. So that's one part. I don't know if it's going to be for 21, 22 or 22, 23, whatever the changes are, because then, as you know, having been on the CEC would have to vote on it and everything. So that's one part. The second question, forgive me, your second question, would you mind repeating that? I just it went right out of my head.
In terms of attendance, you were saying that
okay, yes,
attendance, right?
All I needed was the word.
Okay.
So first of all, as your superintendent, one of the responsibilities that we have is that we do meetings with principals, obviously. We've been doing them fairly frequently, I would say once a week since COVID happened, because now that you can do it virtually, it's not the same as asking principals to come out of school for a day. Usually we do 2 hours. We can do it once a week, and they have questions. We have information we want to share. Plus, we really are focusing in on and want to focus in on instruction. We're doing some instructional work. I can tell you about a very interesting partnership we had this past month. But at those meetings, I talked obviously to principals, and I have made it very clear to principals. I have made it very clear to everyone. And so, quite frankly, has the chancellor's office, that attendance is not something that is punitive. I know that for a very long time, it was very clear. It was not clear. It was very fuzzy, and it depended on which teacher. And this is especially true in the upper grades, in high school and middle school, where teachers often say, well, if you didn't come to my class enough times, you're not getting the seat credit. There is no more seat credit. So those are things that have to do with the reality of where we are now. I have made it very clear to principals, the chancellor has put it in writing. There is, if a parent is concerned or if there's an issue, please tell them to reach out to me and we will follow up. But our principals have shared with their teachers that this is the policy. And that's where we're going. And it makes sense, because if a child can show mastery of the work, they should be able to get credit for that work. And it also enables kids to do work that they're really interested in. And it also deals with mitigating circumstances. For years and years, we've had children who maybe had to stay home and watch a sick brother or sister while mommy or daddy went to work. And that impacted their attendance. We have children who have, older children who have some part-time, some almost full-time jobs that sometimes impact their ability to come to school. And there are other things that have to do with poverty that impact children very deeply. We cannot count their attendance as a means of saying they learned the work or they didn't. If they know the work, they're getting credit for it.
Anita, does that mean that they also won't look at attendance for middle school applications and?
They don't now. We don't do it. We are a lot. That's the one, Neil, you'll appreciate this more than anybody.
Yeah.
When they started talking about how are we going to do the specialized high schools? How are we going to do this program? How are we going to do that? I was like, one less headache we have, because we don't have to think about the middle school application process. Our middle school application process is exactly the same. It's a lottery. You do an online form. We're doing some wonderful things. It's going to take a little while, but we're doing it, and we're waiting for support from enrollment, because they are going to get us some informational videos to share. But we are creating a video for every middle school. They're creating their own virtual tour. They will have a meeting so that parents can go in at their leisure and look at a school and not necessarily have to go to the school. Obviously, they can't. And so it really changes the way the process works and makes it easier, to be honest. One of the things that we're working with enrollment on is subtitles, because we want to make sure that they are available in the languages of our district. So we're very excited about that.
Anita, what do you think the time frame is on applying for the middle schools?
So it's delayed. Right now it's delayed. Obviously, if you think about it, we've really only been back in school a very short time. It feels like we've been back in school forever, but kids have not been back in school until, some of them since the 29th of September. That's when, everybody came back in. And so kids have been remote, but it was only like a week to 10 days prior.
So you think sometime after the first of the year?
I don't know. It might be, we have heard nothing yet. And we're in November, almost literally Sunday is November. So clearly they're not going to put something out in November and say we want it December 1st. I'm going to assume it's going to be after the first of the year. Yes, Suzanne.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And also there was a question on the board about what about the SHSATs?
I have absolutely no idea. I know there's been a lot of discussion about it. I can tell you something interesting that has to do with my high schools, but it has nothing to do with the SHSATs. We don't know. We have been given no guidances yet on the SHSATs. But I can tell you that the High School for the Arts, they're doing virtual auditions. And they are doing it like there's a place for you to submit your audition in a digital format. So they can literally look at hundreds of kids auditioning without them having to come into school. And I would never have thought of this because I am no musician, but the principal of a high school for the arts is a musician and he plays a brass instrument. And he said, you do not want kids in a room together when they are blowing into a brass instrument. So you want virtual for these things. And I have to say, I'm very proud of a number of things. But last year, at the end of the year, MS 443, which is New Visions, they created the chorus teacher put together the song "We're All in This Together," and they spliced it together from kids doing their song, and they put it together, and you could have put it on TV. It was phenomenal. It was just phenomenal. This year, because of that little piece, they were asked to do, for the opening BCO kickoff, they did the Star Spangled Banner. And it was just beautiful. Again, the same thing, different kids singing, all put together. It's amazing. So I feel that like we are working very hard to ensure that the arts are being kept, that kids are doing great things, that the science is being kept. It's not easy. This is not easy, but we're working it. We're absolutely working it.
So we have two people on the board with their, have raised their hands. So the first one will be Tiffany, one of the co-chairs, and then after Tiffany, it'll be JOEANN.
Hi, good evening. I noticed that it was a whole issue with domestic violence cases going up in the inner city due to the pandemic. Have there been any follow-up with the children that may be in some of these households in regards to that? Is anyone reaching out to them? Is there a program that's been set up for them as well?
So Tiffany, you are raising something that's near and dear to my heart, not just for domestic violence cases, but for the fact that all of our children right now, and in fact, all of us sitting here, standing here, are all victims of trauma. We are all victims of trauma, teachers, parents, everybody. And one of the biggest foci in District 15 has been social emotional support for our children. So first, let me tell you that every single school in District 15 before the pandemic was trained in a program called Ruler. And Ruler comes out of the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale University. It is the work of Dr. Mark Brackett. And sometimes if you're in a school and you see this thing that has a red box, a blue box, a yellow box, a green box, that is called the mood meter. And children are given the opportunity to place where they're feeling in it and then talk about it and share their feelings. The Department of Education also did the most amazing training for all principals in something called, I'm going to get it wrong, TREP, which is trauma it's an acronym, but it has to do with trauma. And it really talked at a very deep level about how do you handle kids in trauma? How do you support kids in trauma? When you look at a child who is acting out, what do you see? Do you see a kid who's misbehaving, or do you see a kid who's reacting to something? The way we look at children's behavior now is so different, thank God, than the way we used to look at it. I think as not even teachers didn't. Teachers knew their kids and they were protective of their kids in many, many cases. But I think that more so now, we have restorative circles where the kids will have a morning meeting. Every single one of our schools has morning meetings where the kids can talk about what's going on, how they're feeling, and it enables the teachers to kind of like take the temperature of what's going on, and if they see something, they need it. Another thing, and this is when you're talking about trauma, you're also talking about how do we support families. So we have done some work with, we have a person on my team, let me start with this, who is a trained yoga instructor. And she has been doing online yoga. And if you've missed it, It's available. I can send you the times. She does online yoga in the morning, and she does a session for mommies and me with a teddy bear that's just wonderful, so that there is an option to support families. And ironically, we've gotten a lot of turnout from schools in Sunset Park with this, so, which I'm very happy about. Our schools do, as I said, they're doing yoga. There's the talking, the discussion is so important. But one of the things I'm most proud of my principals and my people, is that they really care about their families. And so when COVID hit, we had a lot of families that had food crisis, that didn't have enough food. And so, especially in Sunset Park, but also in Red Hook. So we began to work with local community organizations, and I reached out, I have to say, give kudos for this. I reached out to Brad's office and I said, look, can you spread the word that we could use donations? We want to make sure that our families, because one of the Center for Family Life in Sunset Park, which is an amazing, amazing group, they were doing a food pantry, but the problem was they were only doing it 4 days a week because they didn't have the funds to do it more than 4 days a week, which meant the last day of the week that they gave out food was on Thursday. So that meant there was that 3-day stretch of the weekend when people didn't have access. So what happened was we were so successful in getting donations that they were able to add an entire day. And so then Friday became the day where you could go to the food pantry as well and get food for the weekend. But the other thing, and this was, and it's still available, is that we as a city are providing food even to the kids who are remote. They can come and get food, or their parent can come and get food at feeding sites. There are adult feeding hubs as well that are open. For example, on holidays, they're still open, like they'll be open Veterans Day, so that people can come and get food. So this to me is super important. But another thing that happened that talks to the need for families is that principals were literally delivering food to families. They were, even though it was COVID, they would like bring food to the apartment house door. They would feed their families. Schools did Adopt a Family, where one person from the PTA would adopt another family and help them. None of this made anybody feel diminished or feel like it was, the kind of not nice charity that some people do. It was a community. We are a family together, and this is what we do. We have seen some terrible things, terrible losses in our community. People have lost a number of family members. People are very, very fearful in parts of our community, because I don't have to tell you, there is the whole political tenor of Homeland Security and the ICE raids and all of those things. But as a district, we support each other, and we're very, very, very grateful. But in addition, this is what I wanted to say, Tiffany. The most important thing to us, to me, and what I tell my principals, is that the whole child is the most important thing. And if I can share with you the last line of what I said, it's a quote from Carol Ann Tomlinson, who said, "No academic goal is worth the soul of a child." And so for us, that's what we think. That's what we believe. And that's how I ended my principals conference on Tuesday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we'll go to Ms. JOEANN Brown.
Good evening.
Hey, JOEANN.
I remember that you were speaking about the children that's like in the North War, that you said that they lost sometimes, they lost like in the midst of trying to come back to school or staying home. Is there any incentive, rather way of that you can keep checking on them and making sure that they have the, the work and whatever that the parent might need or what have you, either checking on
Absolutely.
to see do the parent is able to help this to help their child to become a little bit better, or is there somewhere that like a neighbor that y'all can talk to that maybe can help the child and help the mom, something in that.
So first of all, every one of our schools, almost everyone, we have a couple that don't have one, but most of our schools have something called a parent coordinator. And that person, they are the support system for families in every school. And I have to say that they are very good at what they do. We have monthly meetings with them, so they're all hearing the same message, and they bring concerns to us. So whatever the concern is, they can kick it upstairs to our office. But they are the ones that if the parent has any need, any issue, they can come and talk to the parent coordinator. The other thing is that teachers are reaching out to families. This is part of the whole concept, changing concept of attendance. That attendance is about checking in on kids. It's not about, okay, here, get to work. It is really about how you do it. And there is also something that I don't know if some parents know about. It's called office hours. And teachers are having office hours where they can meet with one parent 10, 15 minutes, talk to them about what they need. They are available. They can make an appointment, or they can email them and say, can we set something up? There is always opportunity. And I'm going to say two things. One, if a parent needs support and they don't know where to turn, they can always write to me and we will help them. That's number one. Number two, they can always write to the principal and the principal will help them as well. So please spread the word. Whatever they need, if they need more materials, or if we've had parents who called and said, how do I motivate my child? Or like, how do, things that we worry about. We're here. Whatever it is, we're happy to help. And I have a spectacular lady in my office who, by the way, is bilingual and speaks Spanish. Her name is Brenda Diaz, and she is our parent support person at the district office, and she is incredible. She is just incredibly knowledgeable and kind, and she will do anything she can to help. Absolutely.
Okay, but that's wonderful to hear. But I'm talking about the ones that does not, that have this fear of coming to speak to your parent coordinator. Because see, I work in the schools too. Okay, and so I know about the parent coordinators and all that too. Yes, ma'am. But I'm looking at the ones that are afraid to come and speak to their teachers or the guidance counselor or their principal because they feel embarrassed, or they are ashamed of their parents, or either they might be something is going on, excuse me, going on somewhere down the line that somebody have not touched on or either paid attention to. Because I see it on a regular basis, and this is why I'm asking you that question. The ones that's really falling behind, that like you said, that you know about them. I'm trying to find out is there, like I said, someone to reach out to the ones that's not out there, not outspoken. They are the ones that's quiet, or something is going on that you don't know about, that you don't see.
So I can't tell you a whole story, but I'm going to tell you this part of it because I can't get into it. Sometimes children's demeanor changes, the way they act changes, and something is wrong.
Right.
And so they can't tell you they're not comfortable. Teachers notice that. That's the whole point of whether it's online or not. And we have had situations where the teacher noticed something. The principals are very engaged with children as well. And in one of our schools, the principal literally noticed something in one of her students. And it was really pretty tragic. Had to get ACS involved. But again, what happened was we helped the child. So
So
if
I
we have,
understand exactly where you're coming from. I
yeah,
understand where you're going with this conversation. I understand it, and I know where you're going with it.
yeah.
All right.
So that's
But
what I
I'm just
want you
saying,
to
like in
know.
general, though, this,
Absolutely. We've got to
I
watch
need
our
them to be
kids.
mindful. You know what I'm saying? The ones
Yes.
that don't like, those are the ones that I would say people have a tendency of just brushing them off, instead of just taking a moment.
No.
Okay.
And the thing is that there is, for those of you who know this, there's a gentleman named Richard Allington who's kind of a guru in education, and I once heard him speak. And he said for kids to be successful in middle school, he didn't talk about elementary, but he talked about middle school. And he said for kids to be successful in middle school, they have to connect to one adult in the building, just one. It doesn't have to be a teacher. It doesn't have to be the principal. It could be the custodian. It could be the kitchen lady. It could be the security agent. If they connect to one person is the one who says hello to them. One person is the one who checks in on them. So that makes a difference in a child's life. And we
Yes,
have
it does.
trained our teachers to be very cognizant of the needs of our children. And if there is a problem and it is not noticed, and somebody in the school will notice it, and hopefully that will happen. I can't say 100%, I wish I could, but I know that our district is very cognizant of the needs of children because principals reach out to us, teachers reach out to us, and teachers reach out to principals, and they know their kids well.
All right.
Uh,
That's what I
All right, so
Anita,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jason. I have to ask you one question. Why did the mayor change the policy for the opt-in and opt-out?
You know,
Why was that? What was going on that the parents were given ability of 4 times to decide about what they were going to do? And that was because, I think it's pretty unfair. I'm not yelling at you, Anita. You know that.
I know.
I love you. I'm yelling at the mayor right now. I don't understand why the mayor decided to do this in the middle of a pandemic when parents, sometimes change their minds when you see a rise in cases, so you change your mind, so you want to go back to remote. And then when you see that the curvature goes down, and then you want to go back to the school building. And it's not about the building, and it's not about the teachers, and it's not about the principals and the custodians and everybody in the community. It's about the fact that parents get nervous with the rise of COVID cases. And he does things, this mayor, and he just, like, you had a big controversy at the Orange Zone school, PS 130, where they closed the school, and the parents were upset. You get this closure and nobody gets notification. It just happens immediately, and they feel lost. So what is going on here? Why are we changing tunes left and right and center? Not you, District 15. I'm talking about city.
I have to be honest with you and say that I don't know. These are decisions that are made by the mayor's office. Bridget, you're 100% right.
Not even Richard's involved.
Yeah, I think so. I can tell you the trajectory for the Orange Zone because I can tell you exactly what happened with me. That I can tell you. When I heard in the afternoon about the governor's map, when I saw the governor's map and I got a clear copy, I immediately notified all my principals that were in the red zone and the orange zone and said, you have to get ready. And I said, because they're going to close you. They're going to close you. We waited. The next morning, the mayor announced that, yes, they were going to close the schools. So they were ready. And then we waited to get clarification with letters to parents. It took a while, but I was very lucky because my principals were already prepared. I had told them the night before, so they had
Thank you.
a little bit of a jump on it, because when you know that something's going to happen, you want to make sure everybody's ready. You don't want anybody to be blindsided. And my deputy and I, we made sure that we called an immediate principals conference the next morning, and we spoke to the principals and we said, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to handle it. Get everything ready, put together packets. God bless them. They said to me, we're on it, Anita. We came in this morning, we put together packets. We have stuff for kids who don't have technology. We have technology to give out. We're ready. We're done. We're going to be done by today. And they were ready. And I'm very grateful for that. The same thing when they heard they were going to come back. They prepared and they came back, and that was it. I try very hard to be on top of what I can be on top of. There's a lot to politics. You know me a long time. I'm not a particularly political person.
I know.
And I think in District 15 that maybe have been a disadvantage for me. But I can tell you that what matters to me is that my schools run well, my kids are taken care of, my families are supported. That's the main thing for us. So thank God for that. And I wish you are not the only person who has asked me this in the past 3 days. Believe me, I can't, my CEC wants to know why. I don't know. All I know is there must be a reason that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Yeah, okay, so it, you know.
Thank
Suzanne?
you, Jason. I'm sorry.
You're welcome. No problem. And we have one last question, and that is going to Neil.
Hi, Neil.
Yeah, it's me again. The last question I had was relating to the D15 plan. I mean, I know, because of the pandemic, resources have to be reallocated, and that's totally understandable. But I just wanted to just find out if, there were basically 40, as you know, 40 to 50 recommendations in that plan. And I just want to ensure that that's still going to be in the purview in terms of ensuring that some of these are being enacted, if not in the near future, because of course we have more pressing matters as it relates to the pandemic, but at least at some point, that's going to be readdressed.
So one of the things, I don't know if you were on for the time when I talked about the SEGA grant. I don't know if you heard that part. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I did. So we got that $1 million. Yeah. So I recall the SEGA grant when we were.
Every year, remember when we were talking about this? Every year for the next 3 years, we will be getting $900,000. And it is exclusively to work on the diversity and integration initiative. And so we're able to do things like culturally responsive libraries, training for families, training for schools, bias training for schools, supports for schools that are not doing well, supports for kids. We're going to do a lot of things. Some of the things that we have built into it, and please forgive me for being redundant, excuse me. Some of the things that we have built into this plan are things that think about the future and to make sure that exactly what you're talking about, Neil, happens. So that we have built in the PAR process going forward for all rezoning for the next 3 years. We have built in work with WXY to make sure that we can reflect on where we are and what's covered in the plan and what we still have to do. We've also built into there's so many pieces. There's outreach to parents. We're going to be working with a variety of strong academic and social justice organizations to ensure that our schools are getting what they needed. We're also focusing in, because it's part of the state concern, we're focusing in on our neediest schools to an extent that says, how are we supporting them to make sure that our kids are doing well? So all of these things are part of it. And we're going to continue to make sure that the diversity plan in District 15 is a living, growing, breathing thing. And that's why I'm so proud of the rezoning, because Neil, it's exactly what you talked about, what we talked about, that it's like, okay, now what happens with the elementary schools? And this is going to make a difference.
Okay, thank you. I think I spoke too soon. We actually have two more questions. The first is
Okay.
Suzanne, and then following that is our public attendee, Sonia.
Anita, I have an email from a gentleman, Justin Krebs, and
I know that name. Yeah.
it's about a petition they have with about 2,000 signatures on regarding the not being able to switch after this one last time. And I said that I would mention it to you, and I should have him send it to you and to the mayor.
Please, I'm happy to be CC'd on it. I will share it with the borough, the executive superintendent. I will share it. I will forward it to the chancellor's office. So please have him. I know they're going to send it there anyway, but I will forward it as well.
Okay.
You shouldn't tell Justin that I've gotten letters from families. I am answering every one of them.
Okay.
That this is what we do, but I will ensure that anything they send me gets forwarded to the right office. It will be seen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. And now we're going to go to Sonia, and I turned on her mic. Sonia.
I think she's still muted. There she is.
Hi,
There she is.
good evening.
Hi.
Am I unmuted now?
You are.
Yes,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. So it's more of a general announcement. The Youth Advisory Council for the CCRB is accepting applications, and I just wanted to share that in case there are any young people who wanted to apply. And I sent the information in the chat, but it's disabled now. That's already been shared.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up Anita's section? Going once.
Jason, before we let Anita go, because I know we're going to speak about the youth awards, but maybe you want to just give a quick overview to Anita, because I'm sure she could be helpful to us to getting it out.
Sure, and you can feel free to jump in when if I leave anything out. So Anita, we are going, like Suzanne said after you, we're going to speak on our committee about restarting the Youth Services Award from CB6. I know that it's something the community board used to do a while ago, and it hasn't been done for, I don't know how long. It hasn't been done since I've been on the community board. But Suzanne, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the, like how it would be nominated and stuff like that?
What we thought that the award should be about is that we know that there are many students, either in the grade schools or the middle schools or the high schools, who have been working to help during this crisis, either by doing more than just like volunteering at a food pantry, but actually organizing a food drive or some sort of something above and beyond. And we thought that the awards this year should recognize those efforts. We're not quite sure how many awards we want to do. That's what we're going to discuss, whether we want to do one for grade schools, one for middle school, or whether we just want to get a bunch of recommendations and then choose 2 or 3, and if they're all just happen to be grade school, that's fine, or whatever. That's what we have to figure out, but we would definitely like your help in getting the word out on this.
So if I can make a blanket statement,
Sure.
please do not hesitate. If there's something that you want to get out that has to do with education, if you would like my principals to know it, please do not hesitate. We share everything. And I will put it on the website. I am happy to share and happy to support you in any way that I can. So please do
Okay.
not be afraid to ask.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think what we'll want is somebody to nominate the kids rather than it being self-nominated.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think not the kids nominating themselves is very sweet, but it's not the greatest idea. But I think that we will happy to reach out to principals, the parent coordinators, the guidance counselors, The assistant principals, we can reach everybody and suggest to the schools that they nominate students who have done amazing things, because some of them have, I'm sure. And so we will spread the word for you, no question. And
Thank you. We appreciate that.
with that, I am going to thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And I am going to leave you to your work. So thank you, everybody. It was lovely to see you all. Be
Good to
safe.
see you and looking so good.
Thank you. Be safe, everybody.
Bye-bye. So that's a good transition. So I don't know, I know we have some new people, but we talked about this last year or 2 years ago, and it didn't get off the ground. So Mike and Suzanne and I were talking recently, and we thought this is something that we should do now, especially in this era where the communities are coming together with the mutual aid societies and food banks. There's a lot of opportunities where we can actually try to shine some positivity on the community. Instead, when you turn on the television or read the news, it's very doom and gloom out there. So we want to use this as an opportunity to show that good stuff is happening within the community, but really to recognize some of these students. As far as what Suzanne mentioned, I think we should kind of talk about it, like, how many awards do we think that we should give out? Should it be, K through 5 and 6 through 8, or should it be that just a certain number that we're going to give away 2 or 3? Or I guess I'll just open the floor for anyone's opinion. Does anyone have an opinion? Bridget?
Jason, what is, okay, so the child gets an award, like a certificate, and what does the certificate particularly say? And what's the criteria of getting the award in terms of, and I can be helpful. We have parent coordinators in each borough. And I could be helpful in terms of, we'd have to use Brooklyn, and getting the Brooklyn coordinator and the District 15 district rep to support with our teachers and paras. But, what's the criteria? And, a lot of things, will the kids get like a library of books? Do we have a budget? We can get a donation of books, UFT, we have our book drive in terms of, we have, AFT gives us a grant of books, what do you?
Well, I mean, I think this is the purpose of this discussion, because it really is in the early stages. It will be a certificate. We haven't put down, what the certificate is going to say yet. And I think, part of the conversation right now is actually figuring out what are the parameters, like what are we looking for, so then when we do send out the announcement, people can fill it out.
In the past, it was just a certificate from the community board acknowledging a youth who had
Right.
done something to benefit the community.
Right.
And they used to do it. There was one for a youth, and then there was one for an adult who worked with kids do something. Which I don't think we need to do that part of it. I think we could focus on youth.
Right.
And after that, my suggestion was that it was something above and beyond just volunteering, that it was somebody who came up with something and did something different. They started a food bank. They started going to seniors. I don't know what it would be.
Right.
I think what, Suzanne, would have been perfect is that with COVID,
Right.
And, get it COVID related.
Absolutely.
And we call it, we can call it something like a COVID hero, youth hero. And, that I know that there were kids, they were picking up garbage at the parks. And, you know, that's COVID related because of the fact that they reduced the hours of the Parks Department for cleanup. You
Right, but
know,
it should be somebody who created a program as opposed to just picking up the garbage, because lots of kids did that,
oh, okay, so,
right? What do you think?
I mean, I think we want to get a large application pool, so I think we should keep the parameters like somewhat vague, and then we can actually see, you know, when it comes in, and then really decide, I guess, an internal kind of grading system where everyone can kind of help review the applications.
I wonder too, this has been such
I'm sorry.
a big year.
Dana.
Oops, sorry.
Dana.
Right, there's so much going on this year. It's not just COVID, right? We've seen a lot of racial justice work. We've seen the elections. Does it seem narrow to only be looking for kids who are stepping up in terms of COVID? They're all obviously so interrelated, but I think that it would be like more inclusive to expand what we're looking at here.
No, I agree with that. And then I guess a major question is, when would we want to give out the award? Is it an end of 2020? Is it in the spring of 2021?
I think, I'm sorry, Suzanne.
I'm open to that.
I would say
I just think that this year, Tiffany, right? This year is like too much.
Yeah.
I'm done with this year.
Yeah, I agree. I say spring of 2021.
Okay, so then that gives us a little more time to kind of like woodshed this and really, you know, make it something that it can be, you know, media worthy as well. We'll also get them in the newspaper and like really draw attention to what they've accomplished. But if it's going to be in the spring of 2021, then we probably need to send out, we probably need to start telling people about it right around December, January?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early January?
Quick question. So in terms of this award, are we looking at a specific age group? Is it from elementary school, junior high school? What's the age range or age group we're looking to target? I mean, if it's going to be junior high school, I guess that would be 11 to 13, 14. So that's one thing.
Right.
And then the other thing is, I mean, in terms of keeping it general, I do agree what was mentioned earlier in terms of it shouldn't be COVID related. It should just be an award on individual or students who are able to balance school life, home life, and extracurricular activities, particularly in the era of COVID, but not have that be the theme, but that, you know, you have well-rounded students that were able to maintain, you know, whatever average we designate, and they might have volunteered at a food kitchen or might have participated in a social justice rally, Black Lives Matter rally, or what have you. But I think that should be the broad scope that we're looking at. And then lastly, if it's going to be an award based on a student's performance within the year, I would recommend maybe May of 2021, where you encompass basically, unfortunately, the rest of 2020. And I do agree we have had enough of 2020, but definitely leading into 2021.
I agree with that. So I guess one of the questions is what does the time period have to be, the time frame for when this, you know, whatever they did counts? Is it all of 2020? Is it from here to, is it, you know?
I was
here, like, I'm sorry.
Tiffany?
JOEANN,
Yes.
you were saying something.
No, I was gonna ask, can we do like a team effort? You know, like some of the children that be doing some of the science projects, you know, or either like a math project, you know, or either like another child creating, oh God, you know, like something to do with their computers, where they're teaching other children how to get onto the computers.
Like a mentor?
Yeah.
I think the original youth award that the community board gave out was for community building. You know, for doing something within the community, not something that was done in a school. The schools give out a lot for, you know, science projects and math projects, but this was having contributed to doing something in the community above and outside of school.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean, for the time frame in regards to them doing it, I would say all of 2020 and into 2021. Because oh gosh, like this year has been an absolute mess, and it's been so many major events happen within this last year. I feel like that should be, you know, accounted for in regards to, because this has been a trying year for children, and well, everyone in general, but especially children. So them actually doing something worthwhile and giving back to the community during this time frame, I think that should be included as well. Because you got to think about it, anything that's implemented right now still carries over to 2021.
Correct. So I agree with you. So maybe we go from March 2020 to March, like March 1st, 2020 to March 1st, 2021.
Right.
And then make the application, like the recommendation has to be in like March 7th or whatever. And that way we have, you know, a month and a half where we can do our scoring and stuff and then give it out in May.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because COVID started March 14th. So let's just do March to March. And that's the
and they let everybody go home on March 16th.
Right.
Yep. Jason,
Yes.
one thing is that, do you think we can give a special award? I'm just throwing it out there. Citizen Squirrel did a lot of youth stuff before, you know, COVID happened. And do you think that we could do an honorable award to Citizen Squirrel? They did the bus.
That's Kathy's organization?
Yeah, Kathy Park Price. And I just, you know, I think it's a very nice group. And if we can maybe do like an honor, you know, a special award. I don't know if people would want to do that.
We could talk to Mike and see if there's something that the community work could recognize, you know, a group that, you know, went above and beyond. But I think for this award, it has to be an individual or a couple of individuals and, you know, youths. But I'm not opposed to what you said. Yeah. JOEANN, were you saying something?
No.
Okay. It's funny because the speaker box pops around on people. So sometimes I think people are speaking. It's just highlighting you for no reason.
No.
Okay, so then we have some time. I think, you know, Suzanne and I will put some of the things that everyone said together, and I'll start like an email chain so we can actually kind of, with everybody on the committee, start to kind of, you know, break down the parameters so that we can all decide on, you know, run it by Mike and then make sure that we get it out by the end of this year so that people have at least 3 or 4 months knowing that that it's out there. And if they want to, you know, work a little bit harder between January and March so they could do it, so they could submit something, that would be good too.
Before we end it, are we all sort of in agreement that we want to do one for whether it's grade school to junior high and then another one for high school, or do we not want to break it down that way and just see what comes in?
Well, why can't we do all three? You know, like the elementary, middle school, and high school.
Because the only issue with high school, wait, how many high schools are in the district?
Oh yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be based on school. It can be based if you live in the
so it has to be based. So that's the question. Does it have to be based on residency in CB6?
Residency.
Or
residency
the work that they did happened in CB6?
No, residency.
Well, because you can be on Community Board 6 and not live in the Community Board 6 as long as you have business or interest in Community Board 6.
I mean, do that? No.
But Jason,
I thought you supposed to be living in a Community Board 6 area.
Right. So you think that people should have, the children should have to live within the Community Board 6?
Yeah, because that's.
I'm just throwing it out there so we can have a consensus.
Yeah, I think it should be live and do something in the district.
Right.
Okay.
If you live in the district and you're doing something in Manhattan, That's not part of it. You have to
Couldn't-
live in the district and do something in the district.
Right.
What about the borough? I feel like like they might be doing things that are still really supportive for the borough writ large, which includes us, which includes CB6, but they're standing in a different community board when it happens.
I think the borough president has that kind of an award.
Yeah, he does a youth award.
Yeah, he does. Yes, he does.
Well, we'll decide what that is like further down the road. But
All right.
we'll, like I said, I'll put together all these recommendations and put it on an email chain, and we'll hammer them out over the next like month.
Is there?
And then we'll try to make, and then hopefully next month's meeting we can actually like, have everything out, vote on it, and then just send it on to Mike so that it'll get the ball rolling.
Wait, so are we giving out only one award? That's
No,
what
we
we're
can
trying
give out as many as we want. We were thinking 2 to
Okay.
3.
Yeah, because I was I'm sorry, I didn't see her name and it skipped around a bit. My eyes back, so I didn't see exactly what she was saying when she was saying in regards to their residents in our district, but they also did something in the borough. Maybe we can do something for have both. One student did something in the district and also lives there, but they're residents there, but also assisted with other places because some of them do go to school in other areas where
Right.
they contributed as well. So that may be something we can do. We could do both.
Right. I mean, I understand that because not everybody thinks along district lines. So
Right.
you're trying to do something, you're not like, well, I got to make sure I do it on this side of Flatbush because it doesn't count if I do it over there.
Across
and
the
I-
street,
And
completely
I,
different.
yeah, and I,
Where
you
to
know,
go.
and the thing is, CB6's lines don't match up with the city council line or state senate lines or assembly lines. Like, so lines don't really mean that much to the everyday normal person. But we could say that they have to live within, the neighborhoods that comprise of CB6,
Right.
which is Red Hook, Carroll Garden, Cobble Hill.
Yeah, you can give something for residents that actually gave back to their immediate area and residents that thought outside the box and chose to help everyone. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could call them different names too.
Yeah.
The awards, like I don't think that's something that we have to explain when we send out the parameters. I think we could actually see how they come in and then see if we have a lot of things. We're like, oh, actually, then we should call this one like the Borough Citizenship Award or something, like based upon what kind of recommendations are coming in.
Right.
But I think it's just important to set the parameters so when they send it out to the schools that they know exactly like the requirements that you had to have to actually be
Yeah,
eligible.
they definitely should be residents of CB6 though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of those 6 neighborhoods. I think that's
To
easy.
that point, doesn't it make the high school piece challenging? Like, don't a lot of kids not necessarily like reaching out to high schools where they're coming from different districts or community boards? How do we get teachers to nominate the right folks there? Like, it seems more complicated, I would imagine, for high schools than the others.
Right.
Schools in our district anyway. I think there's 2.
Right.
But we'd have to do a lot of outreach to youth groups and areas where high school students might hang.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, pretty good question. So I guess this is food for thought. And let's really try to like I said, I'll start an email chain. And at next month's meeting, we'll try to try to finalize all the parameters. We can vote on it.
Okay. Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds very good.
All right.
Are we gonna do a cat award too? Monet?
Cat Zoom Award. Mine's not around here. I would do it. Do we have any other? I guess if we're kind of done with this part, is there any other new business?
No, just remember that PB is starting, and so if there's any schools that we know of that has any ideas for PB, that they should reach out to Brad's office, and same thing on other items, parks items, etc.
Suzanne and
Yes.
Jason, can I just ask a question? In terms of the Gowanus rezoning, how did they come to the conclusion that it was a junior high school that they were going to put in for the affordable housing piece? Was there a discussion?
I don't know that that's true.
It wasn't it supposed to be a junior high school, or did they put a like a plan for elementary, junior high school, or high school? Was there a plan for the school
think
component, what kind it's going to be?
I think when we put forth our suggestions, we did call on them to do a school, grade school, see if there was a need for another junior high school and a small high school in the area. I don't think there's been
There
any.
was no deeming of a school.
Yes, it was. Years ago, they were talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, they've been dangling schools.
Yeah, they sure have. They're talking about it a long time.
Yeah. Why, are you suggesting we don't need one, or that we do need one?
No, I think we need a lot more. Why would I not suggest you, Suzanne? You know me very well.
Yeah.
I just, I was just wondering how they deemed the specific school. I thought that it was deemed a junior high school. I got under the assumption it was. I didn't know where that came from. So I was just wondering.
I think we suggested that all was needed. But
Okay.
I don't think there's been a specification of one or the other or whatnot.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, if that's all, then I guess we can adjourn this meeting.
It's great to see
All right,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thanks all.
Have
Okay.
a good night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we do this now.